Welcome to Indie Music Podcast, episode 317, interview with Jordan Pier, Leaving Richmond. Indie Music Podcast now has a Patreon at patreon.com/indie_musiccast, and we invite you to become a member for exclusive benefits. For next to nothing per month, you can get members-only podcast video, early access to upcoming episodes, merch, and more. This morning, Matt and I get together with Jordan Pier, whose artist name is Leaving Richmond. We are so happy to have the opportunity to talk with him about producing music for network sync, broadcast, TV, and his insights into this field of music production. Enjoy the show.
Hey guys.
Hey.
You've changed. That was funny. Hey, how are you, man?
Good. How are you? Good to see you guys.
Yeah. Good morning,
Good.
Jordan.
Is the audio okay? You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sounds
great.
Shall I do a formal introduction?
Oh, I think so.
Sure.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Indie Music Podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Jordan Pier of Leaving Richmond. Jordan is an artist working out of the LA area. He's creating instrumental music primarily for television and sync licensing. And he records as his artist name is Leaving Richmond. Welcome. I swear I thought we had you on already, but I guess I must have been thinking of the time we had you as a guest on the DIY music chat talking about sync. That was
we
while
linked
ago.
up there. That was a while ago. I think we tried to connect here once before and it didn't work out. So I'm glad that it did this time.
Yeah. Well, welcome. Happy Saturday.
Yeah. Happy to have you finally.
Yeah, you guys having a good weekend?
I think we've been trying to get our schedules to work out for since like maybe December. I
A
think.
year or so ago. Time moves
really?
differently now. So
Yeah, for sure. Why don't you start by telling us what Leaving Richmond refers to?
okay, so I'm from the East Coast originally. I grew up in New York. I grew up on Long Island. My family is from Queens. And they're actually from Richmond Hill, New York. And so when I moved from New York to Los Angeles, I drove cross country, put everything in a U-Haul and came out here. My mother actually moved out to California also. So the last place that I stopped to help her pack all her stuff to go was Richmond Hill, New York. And so as I was driving from California, New York to California, I was leaving Richmond Hill, and I just kind of shortened it to Leaving Richmond. And it's a very literal name that coincides with my quest westward to make music my career.
Oh, so it's kind of like it's like your North Star, like having that be your name kind of reminds you every time you see it, I imagine, why you left and what you're doing there.
Sure. Yeah. I guess it's like I'll always be in some sense leaving that part of my life behind and moving forward. So yeah, it reminds me of where I came from and what I've accomplished and everything that's changed.
Well, that's unexpectedly poignant. I can hear it now that you mentioned it. I can hear a little touch of that Long Island accent still.
Yeah.
It comes around every now and again.
So I know that you primarily work for like sync licensing and working for broadcast.
Yes.
That might be television, other media. I don't know if it's radio or not, but I was curious. Does that or was that kind of the thing that you were going for when you left Richmond, and was this what you were coming out to the West Coast to work on, or was it different at that point?
No, it was something that I was always interested in. The type of music that I wrote, that I composed, I was always compelled to write instrumental music and compose instrumental music, and just it was kind of an organic thing. Just the style of music that I created always lent itself very well to moving imagery and for soundtracking. When I did come out to California, my brother actually had been out in LA for 6 years before I showed up here, and he introduced me to a recording engineer, he was a producer and an engineer who wrote for TV and film. So part of coming out to Los Angeles was to link up with this individual, and I was very grateful for it. He took me under his wing, taught me how to engineer in Logic, taught me how to write for TV, how to create tracks that would be appropriate for TV. So yeah, that was a big part of coming out here, was getting into that industry and being near it, and being surrounded by it. And I actually signed my first licensing contract with that mentor, and one of the first placement, that started a whole slew of placements for me that allowed me to eventually just learn the craft and go out on my own and do my own thing.
Well, that's cool. And you do that full time now, like you make a living doing that.
I do, yes. I'm very lucky to be busy enough to work on it in a full-time schedule.
That's cool. I actually did not know that was something that you had as your goal initially. For some reason, I always got the impression that you kind of fell into that because you were already making instrumental music and it just resonated that way.
Right.
Because I kind of knew you from Twitter basically as it's just kind of like a synthwave, kind of like instrumental artist. I didn't realize that was, and I thought that the sync was something on the side. I didn't realize it was kind of the other way around.
Well, I think it was they were parallel to one another. Releasing full-length albums as Leaving Richmond was a goal, and to continue that, and then expanding, I guess my catalog or body of work was the other goal, and those two things kind of ran parallel to one another. And I got lucky being able to work with people out here that allowed that to become more of a focus.
I know you've talked about it a little bit on some Twitter posts that I saw, and I think a lot of people, including myself, are interested in kind of the mechanics of sync licensing, and like what would be like kind of an overview of checklist items that you should pay close attention to when wanting to get into or produce some music for sync licensing.
Okay, that's well, the first thing that I tell everybody, this actually applies to any musician that's releasing music, but particularly if you are going to go for Q-Sync licensing or commercial licensing, whatever it is to register with a PRO, like ASCAP or BMI. That's the organization that gets you your performance royalties monies. And if you're not registered with them and you're not registering your songs with them, there's no way for you to collect that income. I'm with ASCAP. I've been with them since way back in New York. They're great for TV because they have like their cue sheet update system is very good, and you get to see what shows you're using your music and how much. But that's the first thing that I would tell anybody, especially if you're getting into sync, is to register with a PRO. Then I would tell someone getting into it to learn the publishing side of things also. So, ASCAP, that's the first step in getting your writer's royalties. You're the composer of a song, the song triggers royalties, ASCAP's going to collect that for you. But there's also the publishing end of things. You may not, the goal obviously on every song is to retain as much of the publishing as you can. Sometimes you have to negotiate with that a little bit for whoever's placing the music or whoever's whatever show is accepting the music. But if you retain a part of your publishing, you have to also register as a publisher with that PRO so you can collect those monies also. So that's the first step, is register with a PRO and then learn the publishing side of things. I mainly do Q-Sync placements, which I'm writing specific styles for specific TV shows. I would tell anyone that wants to get into this is to pay particular attention to the music you're hearing on TV. Learn how to craft those cues appropriately, learn a few different styles, and get ready for, there's a lot of work. It takes a lot of practice to get used to it. It takes a lot of rejection in the beginning. And learn how to break your tracks down into what are called deliverables. So essentially, if you write a 2-minute cue or a 1:40 cue, 1:40 seems to be the golden number right now with a lot of the companies that I work with, a lot of shows I work on. You want your full mix, you want a 30-second cut down, a 15-second cut down, a narrative, and what's called a sting. At a minimum, you need to learn how to create those deliverables. The 30 and 15-second cut downs are self-explanatory. They're shorter versions of your main song. The sting, however, is something that a lot of people miss, and it's so important. That's the last 5 to 8 seconds of a cue. That's the outro of a cue. It can't fade out. It can't be cut off. It can ring out. It's fine if it rings out, but it has to be a solid ending. That standalone sting can sometimes get used more time, or not. I mean, pretty often can get used more times than the regular full-length track, and it's a huge tool in the editor's toolbox. So the more, the easier you can make the editor's life, the music supervisor, the editor's life, the more placements you're going to get. And those 3 things would be the main piece of advice that I give somebody. Join ASCAP or BMI, learn publishing, and then learn how to craft a track properly, and the alternates and the deliverables. Those are of paramount importance.
Wow, that's
fantastic.
Really great advice.
Yeah. And when you're crafting these cues, this was something, again, I learned when I came out here. When you're crafting like a 30-second cue or 15-second cue or version, you want to give them something that necessarily doesn't exist in the full track. Modify it in some way that the ending is a little bit different, or maybe even the arrangement is a little different, so that it has the main hook of your cue, or it has the meat and potatoes of the cue, but it's just does something they couldn't just pull out of the full track. You want to give them something else to work with.
I've always wondered
and then
that.
The narrative if you see the word narrative, that's just another way of saying no lead part. If you have a guitar part or piano melody, you strip that out, and it's just the underlying beds. That's for, if there's a dialogue, if they want the feel of your cue, but there's a very dialogue heavy scene, they can use the narrative, and then you still get the placement, for that cue.
And when you register those, do you register those as derivative works of the same thing with your PRO?
You can do that. Yeah, that works. You can do derivative works, or you can it really is up to a lot of time it'll come over as both. Sometimes it'll come over as a separate track, and sometimes it'll come over as a derivative work. It's a lot of that has to do with how they submit the cue sheet and how they file it.
Do each one of those versions have their own ISRC?
They do. They can. Yeah. That a lot of times, they'll be separate tracks. So yeah.
Okay, so there's potential for royalties on each one of the individual versions then.
Yeah, that's what's great about understanding deliverables and understanding those edits is you have now made your track like 5 times more licensable.
Yeah.
Because they can use, I've had multiple versions of the same track used in a show, and it every time either one of them plays, you get, you're creating royalty.
Wow. I've already learned a whole bunch of things, and I thought I knew some stuff. Would you consider sync to be a competitive field, and has it changed over the last few years?
It's a hyper competitive field because, as home software continues to get better and continues to grow, more and more people can write, record, compose, and produce just from wherever they are. So there's more and more people submitting for these opportunities every year. How it's changed, however, I will say, even from when I started, is that there is just an unlimited amount of content being produced now. So there are lots of opportunities, and all of those shows need music, and a lot of them are wall-to-wall music. Any show that you watch, dramatic or reality or otherwise, there's music from beginning to end. So even though there are more people working in this industry or trying to work in this industry, there's seemingly endless opportunities between streaming and YouTube and the various outlets. So yes, it's very competitive though.
So it sounds like there's more opportunities, but because there's so many new people coming in,
kind of balances out.
You have to have your ducks in a row. Otherwise, you're probably just kind of like rejected outright as being maybe unprofessional or not knowing your stuff.
Yeah, they don't really have time there's not a lot of time for them to give you notes.
Right.
I mean, if you're working directly with a music supervisor or a show, then if it's a spot like a commercial, then yeah, and you have a good relationship with whoever's placing the music, then yeah, there could be some back and forth and some notes, but a lot of the times there's just not time for it. So you have to make sure that what you're sending out the door is ready to go sonically and structurally and is ready to be plopped in and on to the next thing.
Wow, interesting. So they don't really have like a post-production on the audio part. What you're delivering is what's expected to be the final produced product.
A lot of the times, yeah. A lot of times. If you're working, again, if you're like the main composer for a show, obviously there's going to be a lot of notes and back and forth and edits and all that. But as you're coming up and you're getting placements, you want to make sure that what you send out the door is as close to finished or is finished, and ready to go.
So most of everything that I've seen you publish and talk about has been solo works.
Yes.
Do you ever do any collaborative works?
I've been not great about collaborations. I put my head down, I get in the zone, and I kind of I go for it. This coming year, I'm going to try to focus a little bit more on collaborations. There have been some collaborative efforts in the past. I have worked with people, and it's always been a good time, but I haven't been great about that in the recent years. But it is something I want to explore, going forward in this year. It's funny you should mention it. I was actually just thinking about that the other day and how to come up with a plan for that.
And would that be for cues or would that be for more like solo album kind of stuff?
I would do both. I would be happy to do both. There are genres that I work in and I have a lot of success with, and there's genres that I have to learn how to do properly. So the ones that I have to learn, I would love to work with somebody who's more experienced and, build up an expertise in those also. And as far as the solo work or leaving full length albums, I would like to do that just to expand my horizons a little bit, because you never know what kind of cool stuff you can unleash working in a collaborative effort.
Well, that just made me think of something, which is that I kind of feel like is your intent to kind of do what you already know well, and kind of your wheelhouse is one thing, and music supervisors know you for a certain kind of style and they go, oh, you know what, I'm gonna hit up Jordan for this stuff. Sure. Or are you trying to expand and learn different styles so that you can be more versatile, or do you feel like that's just a stretch? And I don't know, how does that work?
Both of those things are a good place to be. If you become a go-to guy for a show or a music supervisor, that's great. And I think that if you find success with that and you feel comfortable and you're inspired doing that, do that. I would like to, I think because, like I said, because of the unending amount of content that's out there, it is good to be versatile. You can have your main focus, your thing that you're really good at, but be able to do cover those other genres, just to keep working, just to expand your body of work and your catalog. There are some composers out there, they're brilliant. They can just do everything in every genre perfectly. But I find the majority have a focus. There's something that they're really good at, but they're versatile enough to cover, multiple opportunities at once. And that's kind of where I've been working for the last couple of years. I've been honing the stuff that I'm good at and kind of expanding my skill set to cover more opportunities.
It kind of I want to ask of your musical background, and maybe it's something should have been asked earlier, but did you study formally, or are you predominantly self-taught, or where did you really start learning about music and composition?
I had very, very little formal training. I mean, I started actually playing saxophone in elementary school.
Okay.
And I loved it. I learned how to read music, and I learned the basics of, music theory and marching band and all that. I took guitar lessons when I first started playing guitar, again, back in New York, but not it was casual. It was like, you know, at a local music store, and learned how to play a lot of other people's songs and all that. And I expanded my understanding of theory there. But other than that, after those few years of lessons, it was really just experimentation and playing by ear and trying to figure stuff out that I heard, or emulate composers that I enjoy or that I like listening to. So it was I would say it was a couple of years of formal training. And then since then, it's really just been self-taught, you know, it's just doing it on my own.
Yeah.
And there's endless, I mean, the thing is, there's endless resources now on, if you want to take a guitar lesson on YouTube,
Sure.
you know, or piano lesson or whatever it is there's nothing stopping. I'm kind of envious of kids that are getting into learning an instrument now, because it's all out there.
Right. Well, this has been a lot of business focused, and you sound very business-like, and this is your job. And but I happen to know that you really do love music, and you love making music. And so yeah. So tell us, what's your like favorite part about doing this for a living?
You know, it's inspiring to every aspect of my life to be able to sit down and create a track, you know, from an idea in my head, getting the idea out of my head to a finished product. That entire process is still thrilling to me. I don't care if it's a full length, you know, 4.5 minute track, or, you know, a 30-second bump or something like that. Just the taking an abstract idea, bringing it to life, producing it, and then listening to the final product. That the entirety of that process is something that is always exciting to me. And you know, I guess when I first started this, and I got enough placements where I was receiving briefs for shows directly, or I was receiving briefs for tension cues or you're a little kind of like apprehensive in the beginning, like, oh, can I do this? You get nervous about sending over the wrong stuff and then not getting any more emails or anything like that. My personal evolution from being apprehensive about that to like, gimme, you know, I'm confident enough, get to a point of confidence where you're no longer apprehensive. You get the brief, you look, you know, you're out or whatever, you get it on your phone, you start crafting the track in your head, you know which plugins you're going to use, you know how you're going to mix it. You start to develop melody. That personal evolution of going from apprehension to confidence has been an awesome journey. So
how long did that take? Because I've always wondered about that. You get a briefing like, oh my God, I don't know what to do with this.
It took a solid couple of years. I'd say, you know, I went out on my own for where I was just doing it on my own about 5 or 6 years ago. I'd say it took about a solid, if I'm being honest, about 2 years of submitting stuff, getting some placements, getting rejections, etc., before I felt really super confident. And it doesn't happen, you know, there's not like one day you wake up and you're like, I'm confident now, I can do whatever I want. It is a gradual thing. But I would say in the first couple of years of experimentation and learning became something that I was really good at.
I got to imagine that the rejections are just as important as
sure.
As the acceptance. You know, that's, even if you don't get like a direct feedback from somebody, knowing that wasn't exactly what they were looking for, being able to look at the sheet that you know, that you wrote that music, you know, from, and trying to get an idea of, you know, where your thoughts and ideas on that deviated from what their expectations were, you know, that in and of itself is really good feedback, you know. Sure. If you can take the time to look at it.
You know, mistakes or rejections are great. They're great teachers. And you have to, I guess, if you're in the lucky, you know, tiny percentage of people that land in LA and you start getting hits right away, and that happens to some people. They're in the right place at the right time, and they have the right sound and the right skill set. They get going right away. But for most people, yes, that the rejection is important. It forces you to two things. It decide if this is what you want to do,
right.
If this is a field you want to stay in, and it also forces you to hone your craft. If you're not getting placement, you're not seeing the number of placements you want, or people aren't reacting to what you're creating. It forces you to really look at it, break it down to its atoms, and see what's working and what's not working. And anytime, it's going to just make you a better musician, a better producer, a better composer, no matter what you're working on. And it continues.
You mentioned that, and I think a lot of people who are just doing music without that feedback loop struggle, and they don't know why they're not hitting. You know what I mean? They don't necessarily go back and go, okay, I didn't get that many plays, or nobody, I didn't get that many buys on Bandcamp. I feel like they're lacking that feedback loop. And if you get rejections, you're like, okay, I've submitted this 5 times and nobody wanted it. What could I do to make it better? Right.
Exactly. That is why it's important, because you do. It's sort of like it's continually going upstream. If you're just trying the same thing over and over again and it's not working, but you're not hearing why, you're not getting an idea why, it can be frustrating. The other thing I would say, and this is in regard to that, for people getting started with this, is do be patient, because you can actually start getting placements a lot earlier than you suspect. It takes anywhere 6 months to a year for a cue sheet to come in. So you may be scoring placements in that first year that you don't even know about. So give yourself, be prepared. And this is why, again, patience and perseverance is a very important thing, because it could be a year before you start to see those cue sheets come in, because they don't always notify you. They don't reach out to you and say, hey, we used your track. You got to wait for that cue sheet to come in.
Right.
So give it at least a year before you pull the ripcord.
That's a long game, man.
It is. And that's why, even though there's a lot of people trying, so few people stick with it, because there is a lot of waiting, hurry up and wait kind of thing.
That's good information.
Yeah. All of this has been excellent.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting an education, and I've taken a class in this.
Right.
No,
we're always happy to talk about it.
We're taking a class in it right now.
Yeah, I know. We're getting a master class right now.
Yeah. And this is just my experience. Like I encourage people to explore different avenues. The PROs themselves are great resources of information. So if you join ASCAP, their website is chock full of information on how publishing works. And publishing is a constantly growing, changing entity. So if you're not focused directly in it, it take a lifetime to learn all of the ins and outs of music publishing, but at least get yourself an idea on it, how it works, the mechanics of it. But YouTube is an endless, trove of information. Also, there's people that just like to, they like to share their knowledge, and
sure.
Even you guys, the masterclass that you're taking is a great example. But this has just been my experience, and where my focus has kind of landed. But I would encourage people to never stop learning. Always take the opportunity to learn new things.
Yeah, let's flip this for a second. Instead of talking about the business and publishing side, let's talk about the music creation side. And I know you work in Logic. Yes. And you basically produce and mix all of your own stuff.
I do.
Right. And do you master it before you send it out? I mean, do you give it a final polish, or do you just like mix it and know that it's going to go out? I mean, you mix it as well as you can, and that they're going to do some processing in the editing phase, so there's no point in doing that final bit. Or how does that
I work? Do. I mix and master. I give it a final polish before I send it out, and that's been successful for me. I've never gotten a note really to say, hey, leave the processing off of this, or don't master it. I give it, and actually I enjoy the mixing and mastering process, and I'm still learning how to. Every day I still learn. With each track, you learn new techniques, and
sure.
But yes, I do. I mix and master all the cues. For some of the Leaving Richmond material, the full length albums, I do send that out. I generally will send that out for mixing and mastering. So the cues are very rapid fire. You're producing those very, very quickly, week after week. The Leaving Richmond material of full length tracks, you spend so much time on those tracks that you need an outside perspective. And I find that you should have someone else you trust mix and master your tracks because having someone come in without a personal relationship to those tracks and without ever having heard them before.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it can go in one of two directions. It can be magical thing where you hear things that you never thought that you would, or they focus on things in the songs that you didn't necessarily, you know, think of, or it cannot work out and you find, you know, you go in a different direction. But as far as the cues are concerned, yes, that is all done in-house.
So do you have a main instrument that you like to compose on, or is that kind of by inspiration?
Yeah, I compose everything on the structure and the arrangement of everything's done on the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of dramatic, depending on the show, but some dramatic music features a lot of guitar, and others is more synth and string based and percussive. But as far as the arrangements go, everything originates through the guitar. I'm able to, even if the guitar doesn't make it to the end product or the final track, the arrangement will always originate on the guitar.
That's cool. Yeah, I see some guitars behind you, and at least one bass.
Yeah.
Is that your music room right there?
It is. This is my studio. This is my studio area, and yeah, this is that acoustic guitar that's my guitar from New York that I learned to play on. So it has a special place on the wall. But this area here, is where everything is. It's a very good home base. It's set up, you know, it's constantly evolving, obviously constantly adding things and taking away, but having a space of your own to record and write and produce is really an amazing thing. Like not having to wrangle time someplace or you know, do it only certain hours of the night is life-changing.
Right. I dig the locker storage.
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah. I wanted to have that's form and function, because I wanted to have some kind of colorful background for you know, meetings like this or making videos or what have you. And these lockers, they provide excellent storage and it's a nice pop of color.
Yeah. Well, let's see. We probably should start closing up here as we're running out of time.
All right.
Matt, did you have any thing for the way out here?
No, I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us. So this has definitely been an education, and yeah, it's good finally talking face to face after knowing you on Twitter for so long.
Yeah. We all exist.
We all really exist. We're real people. Well, not all of us, but there's bots. We're not bots.
Really happy to finally get to speak with you, Jordan. It's been a long time coming, and we definitely appreciate your social channels, and always look forward to seeing you out there. And thanks so much for coming to visit us.
Absolutely.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. It was I always enjoy talking about this stuff. So yeah, thank you for having me on.
So I think as way of an outro, we're going to play one of your non-cue tracks from one of your albums, and the song is called "The Frequency of You."
All right, everybody, enjoy your week. Jordan, thanks again, and everybody have an excellent Saturday. Peace.
Yeah, you too, guys. Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.